Hello everyone, I'm Mathew Moreland, owner and head painter of King's Red Painting, LLC, and we help take people's homes from what they look like right now into what they want it to be. We do a lot of work in Bar Harbor, Blue Hill, Belfast. We also serve the greater Bangor area. We have earned 66 five-star reviews to date. In today's video, I wanted to tell you a little bit more about myself and kind of tell you my story. So I'm gonna start at the beginning. I'm not gonna get into too much detail because who can really remember every little bit of their early childhood? But I was born in Sarasota, Florida, and that's where my father's side of the family is from. We didn't live there very long. We left when I was 3 years old. My mother and father separated, and we ended up moving to southern Maine, where my mother's side of the family was located and living. And we kind of spent most of my early childhood bouncing between southern Maine, upstate New York, and just kind of going back and forth between those two places. Until eventually, one summer, we ended up in northern Maine in a town called Hamden, where my grandmother lived at the time. And little did we know that we were going to actually end up staying in Hamden and have been in northern Maine since then. And so for me, that was middle school. I was about to go into 7th grade. We lived in a wonderful little neighborhood, the Daisy Lane cul-de-sac, as I like to think of it. And the Church of the Open Door used to be the church that was at the front of that neighborhood, but now it's been renamed the Discover Church, just as a landmark for you guys. And that's where I lived, and I went to high school at Hamden Academy, and we graduated from that school. We were the last class to graduate from the old school before they made the new beautiful college-like building. And that was in 2010 that I graduated. And I went from high school straight into the workforce because I was really nervous. I did not want to go into debt. So because I didn't want to go into debt, I just decided to get a job. And my friend Mitch Longfellow helped me get a job at the Redemption Center in Hamden, HRC, which is no longer even open. And I started there back when minimum wage was $7.50 an hour, and I worked there for about 2 years, eating ramen noodles, chicken flavor, and sometimes spice it up a little bit and have Chef Boyardee beefaroni. And a lot of times I would eat that ramen noodle packet dry with just the seasoning, just crunch up the noodles and pour the seasoning into the bag and just eat it like chips. And it sounds gross, but if you try it, you'll probably realize it's surprisingly good. But I did that for 2 years, and I eventually one day was working along there, and it was a decent job, but it was a dirty job, and go home smelling like old beer cans every day, and old beer kind of has like a fishy, nasty smell to it. And so one day a man came in and got his bottles and cans sorted by me, and he really took a liking to me, so he offered me a job, and he offered to pay me more money. And he had a ceramic tiling business where they made these really beautiful, ornate ceramic tiles. Some look like lion's heads, some look like a mermaid, and just different designs that he had and did. His business was actually located in Hamden as well. And so what ended up happening was I took him up on the offer. I put in my 2-week notice, and I was enticed by the opportunity that I thought was going to be more promising than working at the Redemption Center, where I was making $8.25 an hour. So I'd gotten a pay raise, about 75-cent pay raise, and nevertheless, I was like, you know what, maybe this will go somewhere. It's more in my lane. It's art, and I love art. As a child, I was always drawn to drawing. and especially people. And so I was like, maybe this will use my skill set a little bit better than counting cans and sorting them. So I left that job, and suffice to say, the grass wasn't greener on the other side. And I do not blame the owner of that business whatsoever, but it was just my young, unaware self that kind of stepped into that situation and thought it was going to be better. And he paid me more, but it was 25 cents more, so I made $8.50. But the problem was I got half the hours, so I got like 16 hours, and I didn't have a ride to work because my boss at the Redemption Center lived on the same street as me in Hamden. He lived on Charles Street, and so he was able to give me rides every day because I didn't have a vehicle, even though I have my driver's license. So there was a lot of things about that I didn't think through before I jumped ship, and I ended up getting laid off to make matters worse, to add insult to injury. So when I was doing the job, I was walking to work, and several mile walks. Sometimes I could get rides, but a lot of times I would walk to work, and it was not good. So then I went a space of time without finding any work, not for lack of trying. So here I was living in my grandmother's basement, and it was a nice middle-class house in Hamden. So it was a finished basement, but nevertheless, I was living there. I had no car, no job, and no degree because I didn't go to college. So I really just didn't see a real opportunity for me, and I couldn't find anybody that would want to hire me. But what ended up happening was I was invited to this church. At the time, it was called the First Apostolic Church. Now it's called the First Pentecostal Church of Brewer. And I went to that church, even though I was a little hesitant at first, and it changed my life. And I can't get into all of the details of that in this video, but that moment, that decision that I made that day to go to the church I go to still to this day, was the catalyst for change in my life, and catalyst for the upward trajectory that my life took from that point forward. And so I went to the church for about a year, and I tried to find a job. I had 2 job opportunities that I ended up failing miserably at the first day at each of those jobs. And maybe I'll tell the story in another video, but to kind of keep this brief, I'm gonna move past those for the time being. But I went a year without finding a job. I got a ride to church every day, every service I mean, and I eventually ended up, one day I was at church sitting on the front pew, and a gentleman that went to church with me, he came up to me and he told me that they were hiring where he was working. So the place he was working is called Universe. It's located in the Bangor Industrial Park on the Perry Road, not far from Bennett's Auto Center. And he offered me the job. And so I applied, I got the job. I started there at $8.50 an hour, and I eventually worked my way up to $9 an hour. I worked a lot of overtime, so I got time and a half. I have scoliosis, so the job and what it entailed was very hard on my body because of my condition, but it's also just kind of back-breaking work. You're working in a factory, you're walking on cement all day long. But I was so thankful for the job, and so I worked there for about 2 years and got the 50-cent pay raise, like I said. But it got to a point where I was like, this is too much on my body. I can't do this long term. So my friend, Jesse Pomeroy, who I went to high school with and go to church with to this day, he got a job at Amato's at the G&M Family Market in Holden. And so he was able to help me get a job there, a job interview for working at Amato's, the sandwich shop. And I did the interview, I got the job, and I worked there for about 2 years. And so if you're seeing a theme and a little through line here, it seems like every 2 years, I work at a place for about 2 years and then I get a new job. And every job opportunity came through somebody else. It was somebody giving me help along the way. And so I'm so thankful for those friends, for those people that opened doors for me that I couldn't open myself. And so I worked there for 2 years, got a pay raise to $11 an hour, which in my opinion, I was a little overpaid for what I was doing. And this is before minimum wage is what it is now, where it's been raised to $15 an hour, which is insane to me, but nevertheless, that's a topic for another video. But I was paid $11 an hour, and I was making the best money I'd ever made. I was making sandwiches, making pizzas, steak and cheese, that sort of a thing, working in customer service. And it wasn't a bad job. It was a lot easier on my body, but I knew that I was at my ceiling at $11 an hour. And I knew the aspirations I had to have a family, to have a wife and children and have a house and, you know, the American dream, so to speak. All the things that I aspired and God put in my heart to want, I knew I was going to need to make more money if I was going to be able to be a provider for my wife, my future wife, for my kids and all of that. So I was kind of in a bad place as far as I didn't know what I could do. I was like, you know, and I'm praying, I'm saying, God, I don't have any skills really, and do I need to go back to school? Do I need to go to college? Do I need to get a degree? Is that the way forward? I just don't see how I'm gonna be able to make ends meet and where I'm gonna really be able to get ahead, you know, even though I'm getting paid well, better than I've been paid before. This is as much as I can expect from this job. And so I got a phone call like probably the same week, maybe even the same day, that I was praying this prayer and I was thinking these thoughts. And my friend Dan Sanford that I go to church with, he had gotten a job at a company called Silver Line Painting, which maybe it still is, was Nate Holyoke Builder's in-house painting company. And they build really upscale $1 million homes for people in Blue Hill and Bar Harbor. And so he said, hey, you know, they're hiring. Would you be interested? And I said, yes. So I went to the job interview and I was very honest with the man. I said, hey, you know, I don't have a ton of experience, but I'm a quick learner and I have an attention to detail, and I believe that I can do this job very well. You give me some training, give me some time. So he hired me. And what's crazy is I was making $11 an hour at that time. Like I said, I was overpaid for my position. It was because I had favor with my manager there. And, you know, I did good work, but that's really what it comes down to, why I got that pay raise. And so he offered me $15 an hour, which was a $4 pay raise from what I was making before. And that was incredible. I was so thankful. I was like, wow, God really made a way there for me. And I worked there for 2 years. I eventually worked my way from $15 an hour to $16 an hour. And then at the end of my time there, I was making $18 an hour. And I was in a middle management sort of a position. And I found myself in a weird place because I was very content. Like, I liked painting. I enjoyed it. And I loved being out in these beautiful areas like Blue Hill, Bar Harbor, being on the coast and seeing these wonderful homes and being part of these beautiful projects. But I was not really seeing much room for growth there because even though I was paid $18 an hour, I figured my ceiling was probably like 25 or so. And not that $25 an hour isn't enough money, but I didn't see myself staying there long term because I didn't want to become something that I wasn't, to try to get the $25 an hour. As it was to get the $18, the $2 pay raise from 16, I had offered to do more work and to take on more responsibility, and I was given the pay raise, and I'm really thankful for that, with the responsibility. But I was like, you know, I don't want to have to keep coming back and asking for more money. And just the whole dynamic at that company was not conducive for me long term. So I ended up going out on my own, and that's how my business started. As right before COVID-19 hit, 2019, I started my business in July. I wasn't able to give my boss a 2-week notice, unfortunately, and I had to just launch out there on my own. And so that's my job history, a little bit of my backstory. And now here we are 6 years later, and we have been able to earn 66 5-star Google reviews. We've served over 250 different clients, and we have improved over the years our service and the experience for our customers. And we are, a small crew. I work with my guys, but I have 2 full-time guys. And in the busy season, which is from like May to September, when we're doing exterior work, I've had as many as 3 to 4 guys full-time working with me. But that being said, I just wanted to tell you a little bit about myself, how it is that we got to where we are now. And 3 years ago, on a more personal note, my wife and I got married, and I've been praying 10 years for a wife, for God to help me to find a wife. And 10 years later, my wife and I got married, and so that was 3 years ago. And then a year later, we got our first home in Brewer. That's where we live, and we're very blessed. That was an answer to prayer as well. And then shortly after that, my wife got pregnant with our first child, and now she's about 1.5 years old. Her name is Penelope, and this month, actually last month because it's November now, October 22nd, my son was born. So our second child was born, Caspian Jack Moreland. And so we are so blessed. We are so blessed. We've had, we have our 2 children now. We have a house. We have a wonderful life. We're living a great life and getting to serve wonderful people in this community. So that's really all. I just wanted to tell you guys a little bit about myself. And if you are looking for a painter that obsesses over the details and cares more about how good your house looks than you probably do, then I would tell you to reach out to us at kingsredpaint.com for a free in-person consultation. We're currently booking work for the winter, and we're also booking work for next exterior season, which starts May 2026. And we have booked a few clients already for exterior work. So if you are thinking about having that sort of thing done next year, you really value curb appeal, you really want your house to stand out and look good and be something you're proud of, then I recommend reaching out to us for an estimate for that. And if you're the kind of person that when you come home to your house, you want it to feel like a sanctuary, you want it to feel relaxing, you want it to look in a way that reflects positively on you when you have people come into your home, when you have guests, and you're not embarrassed to have them over because the paint's flaking or chipping or faded, or it's so dark that you don't really want to come home because it's not the way you want it to look. It doesn't feel the way you want it to feel. Then I would recommend you reach out to us for a free estimate. But if you're not interested in any of those things, by all means, don't worry. We're not trying to solicit business from people that don't want and don't value the service of painting. But that's all I have for you today. I really appreciate you listening. If you've watched this long, you are a real one for sure. And I just want to say at the end of this video, thank you to everybody that supported our business over the past 6 years. We're going into the 7th year, and we're hoping to do things even better. And we have something new coming. It's not a huge change, but I have decided, since it's been 6 years, that I wanted to refresh our logo, refresh our colors, and kind of realign ourselves and see how we can better tailor our service to those that we serve. So stay tuned for that. God bless.